Spotlight illuminated George Strait, casting a golden glow that enveloped him as he stood on stage, guitar cradled lovingly in his hands. The roar of the crowd was intoxicating, a wave of pure energy surging through the venue. He breathed in the atmosphere, filled with anticipation and excitement, and felt the familiar thrill of performing. This was his world. The stage, the music, the connection with 1,000 souls who knew his songs by heart. As he began to strum the opening chords, the crowd erupted into applause. George relished the moment, his fingers dancing across the strings as he poured his heart into the melody. But as the music filled the air, a flicker of something deeper pulled at the edges of his consciousness, beckoning him to reflect amid the spotlight's radiance. His gaze drifted out over the audience and landed on a boy standing just a few rows back. Ethan, a 10-year-old with wide eyes that shone with enthusiasm, captured George's attention. Despite being deaf, the boy was lost in the rhythm of the music, his lips moving as he sang along with a fierce passion. It was as if each beat resonated in his heart, transcending the boundaries of silence. The sight stirred something deep within George, akin to a phantom echo in a deserted hall. In that moment, as George's fingers strummed softer, he felt a pang of loneliness. The warmth of the crowd, once so comforting, felt distant. He could see smiles and hear laughter, but there was a yearning within him, a longing for connection so profound that it felt like a wound he had carried for years. The boy's joy, raw and unhindered, contrasted starkly with the weight of George's success that often felt laced with isolation. As he played, unique memories surfaced in his mind, snapshots of days gone by, lazy afternoons spent on the porch strumming with his father, family gatherings where laughter danced on the breeze like fireflies in the night. Those moments, filled with love and togetherness, reminded George of what it truly meant to connect with others. The music had woven their lives together, creating bonds that stood the test of time. Just then, as he prepared for the chorus, the audience quieted, anticipation hanging in the air like an unstrung bow. It was the perfect moment to call the boy up on stage. George felt a surge of courage intermingle with uncertainty. "How about you come up here, buddy?" he called out. A smile stretched across his face, masking the tremor of anticipation in his voice. Ethan looked up, eyes wide with disbelief, his face glowing with a mixture of joy and uncertainty. The audience erupted into applause, but for George the cheers turned into a muffled roar, drowning out all but his heartbeat. He watched as the young boy navigated through the crowd, each step a testament to the leap he was taking into the unknown. As Ethan climbed onto the stage, George's heart raced. He realized that this moment was not merely about performance or applause, it was about bridging the chasm that he had felt so deeply in his own life. It was a chance to connect threads of sound and silence, vulnerability and courage, all through the medium he loved most, music. Holding the boy's gaze, George felt the edges of his own pain soften. Perhaps through this simple act, they could create something beautiful together, a profound message about the power of music to transcend barriers. In that instant, the promise of connection shimmered in the air, stretching between them like a note hanging on the breeze, ready to resonate with the world. With a nod of encouragement, George motioned Ethan closer, ready to embrace the magic that awaited them both. As Ethan stepped onto the stage, the crowd erupted into applause, and for a fleeting moment, George felt the warmth of their collective hopes and dreams enveloping him. He took a deep breath, readying himself to mentor Ethan in this sacred space. The boy glanced at him, a flicker of uncertainty momentarily clouding his bright eyes. "Are you ready?" George asked, his voice low and reassuring. Ethan nodded, his small frame exuding a surprising determination. George smiled and began to strum gently, coaxing out a melody that filled the air, a simple yet beautiful tune that beckoned the audience closer. He glanced at Ethan, who was now swaying slightly, his hands moving in silent rhythm to the music as he felt the vibrations traveling up through the stage. The boy's presence brought a rush of memories flooding back to George's mind, memories of simpler times when music had been the beating heart of his family. He could see himself as a bright-eyed child, guitar in hand, sitting on his father's knee. His father had a voice that could melt the coldest of hearts, thick with southern drawl and rich with tales from their Texan roots. Flashbacks cascaded around him like the soft notes of a lullaby. A sun-drenched afternoon on the front porch, where he strummed simple melodies while his mom baked pies in the kitchen. The aroma of cinnamon and sugar, entwined with the sound of laughter as his family gathered for their weekly sing-along. In those moments, he felt complete, connected to a lineage of love that seemed to stretch across generations. But the allure of nostalgia faded as the shadows of his adulthood crept in. The loss of his father had left a chasm, a deep ache, often buried beneath the accolades and applause he received on stage. Success had seldom followed him home. While the world celebrated George Strait, the man often stood alone, grappling with the weight of his own heartache. As the audience cheered for Ethan, George shook off the sorrow, turning his focus back to the boy. "You know, music has a way of bringing people together," he said, encouraging Ethan with genuine warmth. "Even when the world tries to keep us apart." Ethan's eyes sparkled with curiosity. He reached out a hand, imitating George's strumming motion, starting to feel the flow of the music. The simple act of sharing this moment made George's heart swell, and he realized that their bond was beginning to deepen in ways he never anticipated. Suddenly, the applause faded, and a flash of unease crossed Ethan's face. George recognized the apprehension, a reflection of his own insecurities. "What's on your mind?" he asked gently. I want to be part of this," Ethan replied in sign language, fingers deftly moving through the air, illuminated by the lights on stage. George watched, enchanted by the boy's bravado. It dawned on him, Ethan's determination to participate in this moment echoed George's own early years, where music urged him out of his shell. The crowd offered a supportive cheer, sensing the budding friendship, and George smiled, feeling the gratitude reverberate through him. "Then let's share your story," he said, strumming a new chord. "You want to teach them how we can make music together." Ethan beamed, his confidence blooming like wildflowers after a rain. He signed again, eager to express his thoughts. "Music is for everyone, even me." George nodded, touched by the sincerity in the boy's gesture. "That's right," he said aloud to the crowd. "We all have a song to sing, no matter what. Let's make this a song of unity." As they began to play together, George introduced a simple chorus that everyone could join. In that brief limelight, they blurred the lines between artist and audience, between sound and silence. The warming glow of the spectacle ignited in George a sense of purpose that he thought he'd lost. The song echoed through the venue, but within moments, George felt a pull toward the past once more. He couldn't avoid the unspoken grief hanging around him. He recalled a night years ago when he had sat in his room, strumming absent-mindedly, longing for his father's guidance. The connection that eased him then felt elusive now, and he both craved and feared it. "Ethan," he said softly as they finished the song, "do you know why music is so powerful?" The boy looked up, confusion crossing his face. "Because it's pretty," George chuckled, bringing memories of shared laughter back to life. "Yes, but it's more than that. It tells stories, our stories. It connects our hearts, even when the world tries to separate us." In that moment, he understood that his music would never resonate with his audience as deeply as it could without acknowledging the pain of his past. The stories he carried within were meant to be shared, just as Ethan was bravely sharing his struggles through sign language. As the applause swelled, George felt a renewed sense of resolution. If this young boy, who could not hear but felt with all his heart, could embrace the power of music, so could he. With a newfound camaraderie, the two took a bow hand in hand, and the audience erupted in cheers, a perfect blend of sound and silence. As they stepped off stage, George felt lighter. The connection they forged together marked the beginning of a chapter worth exploring, rekindling the essence of community that had anchored him as a young boy in Texas. As George stepped off the stage with Ethan, the cheers of the audience faded into a reverberating echo in his mind. The exhilaration of the performance lingered like a heavy mist, but as they descended the steps, reality began to settle in, wrapping around him with a familiar weight. Amidst the noise and excitement, he felt the solitude creep back in, like a shadow lingering just out of sight. Ethan's face beamed with pride, his eyes sparkling with newfound confidence. "Did you see them? They liked us," he exclaimed, bouncing on his toes. "Yeah, they did," George replied with a smile, but underneath the joy felt bittersweet. The boy's happiness shone like sunlight piercing through dark clouds, revealing the chasms of doubt in George's heart. He glanced away from Ethan, searching the backstage area for familiarity, and caught sight of Maria, the boy's mother, watching them with a warm, proud smile. "Ethan, why don't you go find your mom for a moment? I'll be right here," George suggested, hoping to gather his thoughts alone before diving into the next steps of this unexpected journey. "I'll be back!" Ethan shouted as he dashed away, leaving George in a bubble of silence. As the noise of the crowd softened, George couldn't shake the feeling that while one connection had bloomed, the echoes of his own loneliness were louder than before. He wandered down the dimly lit corridor, reminiscing about the early days of his career when life felt so full of promise. He'd been the young man with stars in his eyes, performing in small Texas bars, clinging to his father's advice, "Keep your heart open, son." But the years had been less forgiving, the industry often pushing him towards soulless commercialism. The warmth of a simple tune felt overshadowed by the demands for hits and profit. George paused, leaning against a wall, letting the silence of the backstage wash over him. He realized he had grown tired of the fame that had once thrilled him. He had poured his heart into each song, yet he often felt like a spectator to his own life, echoing words that felt hollow since the loss of his father. "Carry me home, Dad," he whispered, the loneliness lacing his voice. It felt like a plea to the void, but there was no answer. It never came. As if sensing his inner turmoil, Maria walked over, her kindness radiating like a gentle light. "You were amazing up there," she said, her voice full of warmth. "Ethan hasn't stopped beaming since he stepped onto that stage with you." "Thanks," George replied, forcing a smile, though the tension in his shoulders remained unresolved. "He's got a gift. You've ignited something in him," she continued, her eyes softening. "There are so many struggles he faces daily." "You gave him a piece of joy tonight." George nodded, aware that tonight had meant something significant to both of them. "It wasn't just about him, Maria. He hesitated, searching for the right words that would convey his own struggles. "It felt like I was reaching back for something I've lost for a long time." "You're not alone, George," she said gently, sensing his turmoil. "Ethan and we feel that drive to connect too. It's easy to forget when you're in the midst of it all." A wave of vulnerability washed over George as he met her eyes, feeling a unifying sorrow between them. The room suddenly felt smaller, their shared pain bridging the gaps of their different worlds. He sighed, tugging at the collar of his shirt, and for a brief moment he allowed himself to not hold back. "Sometimes the stage just feels empty," he admitted, revealing a part of himself few ever saw. The corners of Maria's mouth turned down slightly, but her expression was understanding rather than pity. "Music carries memories, George," she said softly, "and sometimes they're heavy to bear. Ethan teaches me that our voices don't have to be loud to matter. They can hold meaning in the unspoken too." Feeling the weight of her words, George realized that by reaching out to Ethan, he had begun to confront his own shadow, a shadow that had lingered too long. But this wasn't merely about his solitude. This was about empowering others. "I want to help him. I want to help people like him," he said, heart racing at the thought. At that moment, Ethan returned, bursting with enthusiasm. "Did you hear all the people cheering? I want to sing again." He jumped up and down, fists pumping in the air, unbothered by anything outside his bubble of joy. Seeing the boy's exuberance pulled George from his introspection. "Absolutely, buddy," he said, kneeling to meet Ethan's eyes. "We'll find ways to make music together. Every voice matters, even in silence." Ethan grinned, and George felt a flicker of hope reignite. Maybe this was his chance to redefine his journey in music, not just as a performer but as a mentor, somebody who could empower voices often ignored. As he looked at Maria and then back at Ethan, he realized the path ahead wasn't just about sharing his own story, but also about amplifying the stories of others. Despite the lingering shadows of his past, George Strait felt that tonight marked a pivotal moment of connection and possibility, a chance to bring forth a new chapter, widowed from his loneliness, but filled with purpose instead. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of activity, a vibrant tapestry woven with strings of hope and purpose. George found himself at the heart of an unexpected transformation. With Ethan's infectious enthusiasm and Maria's unwavering support, he began reshaping the contours of his life, both as an artist and as a person yearning for connection. The warmth of their bond enveloped him, igniting a fire he had thought extinguished long ago. George spent every Thursday evening at the community center, where he'd brought together a diverse group of kids, each carrying unique stories and challenges. Ethan was always the first to arrive, his smile brightening the room. George would strum his guitar, and soon the sound of laughter filled the air as they crafted melodies together. The kids piled their hopes, dreams, and vulnerabilities into those songs, feeding into an unfiltered creativity that thrilled George. "Let's write about our favorite things," George suggested one evening, taking a seat on a worn couch next to Ethan. The walls of the center were adorned with art made by the kids, each piece telling a tale that resonated with shadows and light. "Like ice cream," Ethan blurted out, eyes alight with excitement. "And the stars," a girl named Mia added, her long braid bouncing as she spoke. "Yeah, and the music that makes us feel good," George chimed in, his heart swelling at the candidness of their contributions. And so they began to weave a melody, lyrics flowing like a river from young hearts, unfurling cracked edges turned smooth by optimism. Each note struck a chord with George. He hadn't felt this degree of innocence and enthusiasm since his early days in the music business. Here, the stakes weren't fame or chart-topping hits. It was about expressing joy and friendship. A few weeks later, the community center decided to host an open mic night, a stage that would showcase not only George's music, but also the voices he had nurtured. The energy backstage buzzed with excitement and nerves as the kids prepared for their debut performance. He watched eagerly as they rehearsed, knots of emotion tightening in his stomach. "Remember, just be yourselves," he encouraged, pacing among the anxious children. "This stage is your home tonight. Speak your truth through the music." Ethan looked up at him, a determined sparkle in his eye. "I'm going to show them what we've created. Our song will make them happy." A soft smile crossed George's face, heart swelling with pride. This moment wasn't for him, but for them. As the evening progressed, the sounds from the audience grew louder, hearts harmonizing in anticipation of the performance ahead. When the time finally came for them to step onto the stage, George felt a rare flutter of anticipation, the kind he hadn't experienced in years. His palms were sweaty, but he was exhilarated. As he guided Ethan and the others through the entrance, the applause enveloped them like warm embrace. Once they settled in front of the microphone, George began playing the familiar chords of their original song. The room lit up with the kids' voices, ghostly echoes of their creativity echoing through the excited crowd. Each lyric echoed truths deeply rooted in the innocence of youth. Ice cream melting in the sun, the stars whispering promises in the night, laughter that filled the air like sweet notes of song. The audience dissolved into smiles and laughter, making space for a connection amid the music. As George scanned the crowd, he noticed familiar faces filled with tears of joy. The simple truth of what they had created together struck a chord far deeper than he anticipated. For the first time in years, he felt a genuine, heartfelt joy flood over him. It was more than a stage. It was a significant step toward healing, both for him and for these amazing kids. The performance concluded with a standing ovation, and George's heart swelled as he witnessed the kids enjoying the moment. They beamed at him, exhilarated by their accomplishment, and as they took their bows, George felt renewed purpose embodying him like a dim light reigniting. Backstage, the energy was electric. "You did it!" he shouted, enveloping Ethan into a tight hug. The kid was practically bouncing off the walls with excitement. "I can't believe we did that. It was incredible," he yelled, his cheeks flushed with the thrill of performance. "Yeah, and it was all because we worked together," George said, crouching to meet Ethan's gaze. "You all have amazing voices, and your stories are important. This is just the beginning." However, later that night, as George stepped outside the venue and inhaled the cool night air, he allowed the exuberance of the moment to settle around him like a warm blanket. Just as he was about to turn back inside, a flicker of shadow crossed his heart again, an insistent whisper of loneliness. He looked up at the stars, and for a moment he felt a pang of longing, a reminder of the warmth he had once shared with his father under the same vast sky. The ache was palpable, but he recognized it now. It guided him rather than paralyzed him. Rather than resorting to familiar sorrow, he began to breathe through it, understanding that pain was a part of life, but connection was the remedy. As he returned inside, he glanced at the kids celebrating their triumph, joy unbounded on their faces, and he recognized the torch that had been passed to him. The music was indeed alive within them, intertwined with stories that deserved to be heard. Now, it was time to carry that hope forward. Maybe the shadows would never fully dissipate, but together they learned how to dance in the light, weaving together sounds that transcended isolation. The ongoing journey had just begun, one of rebirth through music, community, and an unwavering belief in the power of connection. The resonance of their laughter and music echoed through the walls of the center, a comforting reminder of the life that flowed between shared notes. Here, George Strait was not merely a performer, but a steward of stories, his own and those of these incredible young voices. From here, he could finally breathe deeply and allow the sound of purpose to carry him forward. As the months rolled on, the community center blossomed into a hub of artistic expression, a vibrant tapestry woven with threads of hope and purpose. Each Thursday, when the kids arrived, it was a feast of creativity and camaraderie. George organized workshops, allowing them to explore instruments, write lyrics, and embark on artistic journeys together. Their songs became anthems not just of shared experiences, but of resilience, overcoming adversity with harmony and love. Yet beneath the buoyancy of progress, challenges began to surface, threatening the fragile community they had built. A few weeks before the annual local festival, news hit that funding for the arts programs was at risk. The community center faced a potential closure, and the dreams they had forged together now hung in a precarious balance. That evening, George gathered the kids for a discussion, urgency threading through his heart. He paused, unsure how to broach the topic without darkening the joyful atmosphere. "I need to talk to you all about something important," he began, his tone steady. Silence enveloped them, and George felt their anticipation as palpable as the energy they shared in their songs. "There's a chance the community center might close down, unless we can show how much it matters to us, to everyone in the town." Ethan's face fell. The brightness in his eyes dimmed. "But we have so much fun here. What will we do if it closes?" A wave of distress swept through the room, each child reflecting the concern etched on George's heart. "We can fight for it, guys," he reassured them. "We can show the world why the arts are important in our lives." Maria, who had joined the meeting, chimed in. "We can organize a performance at the festival. We'll invite the community to see what we've created together. Music has the power to awaken hearts. We can inspire change." "Yeah, we can sing about how much this place means to us," cried Mia, her voice brimming with determination. A sense of resolve washed over George, buoyed by the unity that had blossomed among them. They decided then to give everything they had to save their sanctuary. In the weeks that followed, they poured their souls into preparation, crafting an emotive anthem to encapsulate their journey. The kids drew inspiration from their lives, weaving together stories of struggle and triumph, creating melodies that resonated with the very essence of their experiences. But just as hope blossomed, George received heart-wrenching news. His mother had been diagnosed with dementia. The call left him breathless. He excused himself from the group, seeking solace under the vast sky, the same sky that had once been a canvas for his memories with his parents. The news struck him deep. "What do I do?" he murmured, grappling with the weight of responsibilities growing heavier. Yet his father's teachings echoed in his mind. Music had the power to bridge the chasm between pain and healing. With renewed resolve, he returned to the kids, knowing he must confront both his challenges and those of the children they had united. "Hey everyone," George began, his voice slightly trembling. "I just found out my mom is really sick, and I might need to balance taking care of her and being here." Concern rippled through the group, but Ethan soon spoke up, his childlike optimism unwavering. "But we can help. Let's write a song for her. Everyone needs to know how much she means to us." "Yeah, we can sing for her," Mia chimed in, nodding with excitement. Strength surged within George at their resilience. He realized he wasn't just a mentor, they were a family, facing challenges together. "Okay," he said, "let's create a song that honors family and the connections we treasure. We'll dedicate it to her." And so began a new chapter in their preparation, layering their anthem with heartfelt tributes that reflected both their individual struggles and collective experiences. They seamlessly wove their emotions, the laughter and tears blending into something beautiful, a reminder of love's enduring power. As the festival drew near, excitement rippled through everyone. The children infused hope into every note, their creativity guiding them toward an unsuspecting triumph. George felt a shift within himself, both as a mentor and a person navigating this profound challenge. On the day of the festival, the sun hung low in the sky, casting a golden hue over the gathered crowd. Anticipation filled the air as they took their place on the stage, a mix of nervousness and excitement punctuating the moment. "I want you to think about your stories as you sing," George reminded them, standing beside Ethan. Remember, we're here to celebrate what this place has given us." As the music began, George strummed the opening chords, and with that familiar blend of fear and exhilaration, they launched into their anthem. Every lyric embodied their journey, bridging their struggles and hopes. The audience, friends, family, and neighbors absorbed the energy, love resonating through the chords as each child sang out with conviction. When the last note lingered in the air, the applause erupted into a cacophony of cheers. George's heart swelled with pride, not just for the performance but for the unity they had forged through adversity. Later, amidst the jubilant chatter and celebration, George stepped aside for a moment. He pulled out his phone and stared at a message from his mother, filled with encouragement and love. Tears pricked at his eyes, not from sorrow but gratitude, understanding that through the shadows he had faced, he also had a light guiding him. As he returned to the group, the stars began to sparkle in the night sky. Though challenges lay ahead, George knew they would navigate them together. In this weave of laughter and music, both he and the children had grown, fueled by the power of love, family, and shared stories. This moment was merely the beginning, a journey leading towards healing, connection, and the kind of love that thrived in the light of community and togetherness. In the days following the festival, the atmosphere at the community center resonated with palpable energy. George was reinvigorated, buoyed by the triumph they had shared, and determined to maintain that momentum. He utilized the success of the performance as a platform to delve deeper into the kids' creativity, pushing them to express themselves more fully and hone their skills. They had tasted success, and now he wanted them to know that it wasn't just a one-time event. It was the beginning of something enduring. "Let's plan more performances," George suggested one afternoon as they settled onto the sun-dusted grass outside the center. "How about a summer concert series?" Ethan's eyes widened with excitement. "We can invite more friends, and we can sing all our favorite songs." "Yes," Mia echoed, "and we can make posters and everything." After brainstorming colorful ideas together, they transformed into a whirlwind of activity, each child eager to contribute. George felt their excitement washing over him, a bright wave of passion that lit up his cautious heart. He could see a future unfolding, one built on mutual support and love, where each of them helped the other grow. Yet, as George immersed himself in this rejuvenation, his mother's condition weighed heavy on his mind. With each passing week, he observed how her memories faded against the backdrop of time. There were moments they shared, snippets of conversations where her laughter sparked a familiar glow, but the shadows of uncertainty also grew darker. During one quiet evening, a gentle knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. It was Maria, holding a baked pie, a small gesture but filled with warmth. "I thought you could use a little comfort food," she said, as she settled onto the couch beside him, where George sat buried under a pile of notes and schedules. He smiled, grateful for the friendship. "How did you know?" "I just thought I could help take your mind off things," Maria replied, glancing at the mess around them. "Besides, we should celebrate the success of the festival. It's important to savor these moments." They shared the pie, laughter and stories flowing freely between bites, and amidst the casual conversation, George found himself opening up. "It's hard sometimes, you know." His voice turned serious. "My mum, her condition is getting worse. I keep trying to be strong, but I'm scared of what's to come." Maria paused, her gaze steady. "It's okay to feel that way, George. You're not alone in this. And you have your music. You can always use it to express what you're feeling. It's your strength." George looked at her, appreciating her understanding. "You're right. I've spent so much time trying to hold everything together that I forgot to let it out. Music has always been my safe space, my sanctuary. I need to remember that I can use it to process my emotions, not just for the kids, but for myself, too." Over the next few weeks, George found solace in creating new music, reflective pieces that captured his experiences and emotions. With the warmth of Maria's companionship and encouragement, he harnessed the challenges he was facing and turned them into melodies. It was a cathartic outlet. Every strum of the guitar unlocked emotions he had tucked away. He began performing nightly at home, pouring his heart into each note. Some nights, he would invite Maria over to listen, sharing the rawness of his work. She would sit quietly, her expression a mix of admiration and empathy, absorbing the depth of his vulnerability. In those moments, George realized he was healing. While the shadows of his past loomed, the light they once dimmed began to seep back in. And the more he expressed this process through music, the more profound his understanding of connection became, of allowing others in and sharing the burdens he had shouldered alone. As spring gave way to early summer, the kids were roaring with enthusiasm, preparing for the concert series. Organizing the event brought the community together, intertwining their lives with laughter, anticipation, and excitement. Flyers adorned shop windows, while the local newspaper wrote an article about the program, capturing the spirit of hope that bloomed from the community center. The night of their first concert arrived, and the excitement crackled in the air. George stood backstage, watching the buzz of children before him filled the space. They laughed together, rehearsing their songs with a joy that radiated from every side. Even in the face of uncertainty surrounding his mother, George felt a profound sense of purpose. "Are you ready?" Maria appeared by his side, a soothing presence amidst the frenzy. "As ready as I'll ever be," he replied with a small smile. The moment they stepped onto the stage, the crowd roared with applause, a flood of friendship and familiarity. With laughter and a few silly jokes, the kids captivated the audience, each song carrying snippets of their hearts, their stories of dreams, fears, and the power of connection they had all found within each other. As George played alongside the children, he felt the shadows of his worries fade into the background. In that space, surrounded by the community he had come to cherish, he found strength. Their harmony was a testament to resilience, overcoming obstacles together. When they performed the song dedicated to his mother, George felt the weight of his heart transform into something beautiful. The lyrics poured forth, his voice intertwining with those of the kids, sharing love with every note. The energy emanating from the audience lifted them, igniting sparks of emotion that danced through the air. As the last chords of the song lingered, the applause erupted. But it felt different this time, not just cheers of admiration, but an acknowledgement of profound connection forged in shared experiences. George found himself overwhelmed with joy and gratitude, tears glistening in his eyes. That night, as they celebrated the concert's success, George felt the community close in around him, wrapping him in love and understanding. He glanced at the stars twinkling above and realized they had navigated their way through darkness and uncertainty together. The journey wasn't over, but for the first time, he looked forward with hope. Music, friendship, and unwavering support from those around him had healed him in ways he never thought possible, and as he took a deep breath, George knew he could face whatever lay ahead, surrounded by love, connection, and the melodies that carried them all forward. In the weeks following their triumphant concert, the community center thrived with energy and creativity. George was determined to build on their success, fostering a spirit of collaboration among the children that resonated deeply within him. Each day spent together solidified the bonds they had formed, lifting their spirits as they navigated the challenges they each faced. One afternoon, as they gathered in the rehearsal space, Ethan approached George with bright eyes. "Mr. Strait, can we write another song? Something about how we've all grown together?" With a smile, George nodded. "Absolutely, Ethan. Let's capture our journey in a new piece. Everyone has something valuable to share." The children eagerly joined in, sharing thoughts and feelings they'd experienced throughout their time together. As they composed lyrics, George guided their creative process, encouraging them to express the complexity of their emotions. Their voices intertwined, each perspective a thread in the intricate fabric of their shared story. Amid building excitement, George shifted his focus to his own life. He visited his mother regularly, incorporating her into this journey. He would often bring the kids along, hoping the music would rekindle memories of joy within her. On one visit, as George strummed his guitar and sang a familiar tune, the corners of her mouth turned up ever so slightly, a glimmer of recognition in her gaze. Moments like these reminded him that love and music could bridge the darkest gaps. As summer drew near, the children decided to host a small event at the community center to debut their new song. George was thrilled at their enthusiasm and knew this was a moment they needed to share with the entire community. They plastered flyers around town, spreading the news, drawing optimistic faces to the center. The night of the event was filled with vibrant anticipation. Families gathered, their hearts open and expectant. George felt a rush of pride as he looked around at the buzz of excitement. As the group emerged onto the stage, he could feel the collective energy swirling among them, a palpable reminder of their journey. "This song is a testament to our growth together," George announced. "We hope it resonates with each of you, reminding us all of the bonds we've fostered." The children began to sing, their voices soaring as they wove their stories into lyrical harmony. The audience was captivated, nodding along, moved by the passion radiating from the stage. For George, it was a striking moment of connection, a celebration of not just their hard work, but of the life and community blossoming around them. When the last note faded, applause erupted like a cresting wave, washing over the children. George's heart swelled with joy, reflecting love and admiration that enveloped the community. It wasn't just applause, it was shared recognition of their collective journey and the strength they had discovered together. After the performance, families and neighbors mingled, discussing the new song and the future of the center. George felt enveloped in warmth as he watched the children embrace one another, knowing they had solidified their place in the community. That night, standing beneath a canopy of stars, George reflected on how far they had come. He felt a lightness in his heart, the grief for his mother's situation still present, but softened by the love and support surrounding him. The connections they built were transforming not only their lives but his as well. As he headed home, he realized these relationships would carry him through whatever challenges lay ahead. With the children by his side, his gratitude deepened, fueling his passion for music and the lessons of resilience they had all embodied. Together, they would face life, every note, every harmony, a step forward into light, laughter, and love. George Strait knew this was just the beginning, a new chapter woven with the threads of hope and the belief that they could overcome anything together.